everyone. Welcome. My name is Lisa Wolf-Wendell, and I'm a faculty member at the University of Kansas. And I am here today with a group of amazing women and scholars, both, and leaders, who are part of a really interesting and dynamic group of doctoral students who have engaged in an EDD program with the University of Kansas, but in Vancouver, British Columbia. And all of these folks are here, and we're going to all talk today about what it's like to be women leaders and how our leadership journeys are influenced by who we are as women and as people. So I'm going to introduce each one of the participants one at a time, and they're going to share a little bit of information about their perspectives on leadership, and then we'll have a little conversation together at the end of this. So I want to welcome you all here, and I'm excited that you are listening to us. So to get us started, I'm going to introduce you to Shannon Behan. So all the introductions were written by each participant. So in the southeast region of the beautiful country of Ireland, there is a stunning town with rolling hills of green, castles, cathedrals, and a few good pubs. This place is called County Kilkenny, and this is where Shannon's roots are. Her grandfather was the school headmaster, and all family gatherings began and ended with music, laughter, liquor, and levity. My favorite things. One of the core beliefs of her family is that education is the key to a well-lived life. Shannon has been an educator in public, private, independent, and international schools in British Columbia and Beijing, China for the past 25 years. Shannon achieved her undergraduate degree from the University of Victoria in British Columbia, and her first teaching position was in a small city outside of Taipei, Taiwan. She spent the next 25 years working as a classroom teacher, a counselor, and as an administrator in elementary, middle, and high schools. 6 years ago, Shannon moved to Beijing, China, to become a principal of a certified BC offshore school. Shannon is currently working on her doctorate in education and policy studies in our program through the University of Kansas. Shannon is curious about many things, and today her curiosity is leading her to reflect on the manner in which gender informs our narratives as leaders. Shannon, why don't you get us started?
Thank you very much, Lisa. I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to reflect a little bit on how my own personal journey has come to be where I am today. When I first got into leadership positions in administration, I remember sitting at tables in meetings where I was one of the few females, and probably for about a year and a half or maybe 2 years, I never said anything at any of the meetings at all. I'm not sure if I was encouraged, discouraged, but there was perhaps the weight of the importance not to really say, to watch, to listen, and to learn, but not necessarily provide any input. And so that was diametrically opposed to what my work as a teacher was. And when I was in the classroom, my role was somebody that was highly engaged, that was a teacher leader, that worked in collaboration with other colleagues. One of my first opportunities to really jump into a role of leadership was working on a Faye Brownlee program that we were working to improve literacy skills in our district. And so there were courses that we would take, and I was part of a collaborative team, and we were co-creating reading and literacy programs in various schools across the district. So originally that's what leadership looked like and felt like to me. And then when I got into the role of being an administrator, then the reality was very different. I wasn't a co-creator. My job was to sit back and to listen. And so it was just very curious to me where that messaging came from, that my role needed to shift. So there are a few elements of being a female leader where we have opportunities to grow and to learn. Being a teacher leader for me was really a key piece, and being passionate about what I love to do is is really important. When I started talking to some other colleagues saying what we were working on, they were saying, oh, I can't believe you're still kind of working on the idea of women in leadership. And I said, I know, that's right. It's quite curious that it seems like it hasn't shifted that much from 20 years ago. So there is work to be done, but I still feel like with groups like ours, there have been improvements, and there are places to grow. And so for me, part of my role in being a teacher leader and an administrative leader is to shift, to change, to transform, to bring who I am as a person, a passionate leader, into, you know, the venue that I'm working in, to believe in what I'm doing, to speak about it, to believe it, and then to sell it, for lack of a bit better way of saying it. My job is to say, hey, I can make a difference, and we can make a difference. And the final thing I just wanted to leave off on is one of the improvements that I think collectively all of us female leaders in whatever role we're working in, one of the things that we can do to help one another is to speak up for one another and lift one another up. It's really okay to shine brightly, and it's important that we let everybody's sparkles shine. And so I'll just leave off on that. And my kind of mantra is, instead of, I think there was we to me, which is a big controversy in Canada, but I'd like to shift it to we to she. So thank you very much, my 2 cents, and I'll leave it over to you, Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Shannon, so much. That was really insightful. I love that. I'm going to have to hear more about that controversy. I don't know about it. All right. I'm going to introduce Paula Gossel next. She's currently the principal of Chilliwack Middle School, and this year marks her 23rd year in education and her 14th year as a school administrator. Paula started her career as a high school English teacher and then was a middle school counselor before becoming a school administrator. Paula's been married to Suki since 2001. Paula is the proud mom of 2 boys, Tyron, who's 13, and Paris, who's 10, and they live in a multi-generational family that includes Suki's mom and his brother, who has Down syndrome. In her free time, in quotes, by the way, Paula is pursuing her doctorate in education through the University of Kansas with a focus on women in educational leadership. Take it away, Paula.
Thank you. So this topic of women in leadership is obviously near and dear to my heart, not only because I'm a woman, but also because it's actually a passion for me to help to develop other leaders and other female leaders in our community. And so that's also the topic of my dissertation project so far, unless somebody tells me I need to change it. And thinking about my journey in leadership, I think I was very acutely aware of myself as a woman entering secondary school vice principalship even before I started. The fact that I even got the job for me was a huge surprise, that they'd chosen me, and was I worthy? And I think that even though I was driven and passionate and wanted to be a leader, I didn't actually believe it was going to ever happen. So prior to starting my first job, I actually met with our assistant superintendent and the principal that I'd be working for in my first position. And we talked about some of the things that I was looking forward to and some of the things that perhaps I was concerned about. And I remember this conversation very distinctly. They asked me what my concerns were, and I said, well, I'm really concerned about traversing that fine line between being a bitch and a pushover. And the gentlemen, who are very amazing administrators, kind of looked at me and didn't know what I was talking about. And at that point I was like, oh, they have no idea what it means for a woman who's in a place to make decisions, and how we are sometimes thought of when we make difficult decisions, or when we make difficult decisions in a simpler way that might not support everybody. So that to me was very eye-opening and told me that I needed to figure out my own way because my mentors at the time had no idea what my journey entailed because of my gender. And so I really had to, so that year, my first year was amazing and difficult because 6 weeks in I got pregnant. And unfortunately, and as I look back, I did something that now I regret. I apologized for becoming pregnant. And so, and I think I apologized because I was in a man's world. And now this was going to show everybody that I wasn't actually like the men in my, like my colleagues. And so my femaleness was going to be right out front for real. So there's a lot of things that I had to think about, and I proceeded in my leadership and with the strengths that I feel I have, and that's my relational skills. And I think that those are the skills that all of us bring to the table that might be different than some of our colleagues. And so back to that decision-making piece, for me, it was really important to be to have integrity in my decisions, to be trusted, and to work in an environment of trust. So I expend a lot of energy building those relationships in the schools that I work in and ensuring that we have really strong, trusting relationships that enable me to traverse that fine line and be respected. So I think that knowing that about myself and knowing that the skills that I have and some of my superpowers in some of those skills that are different than my colleagues have really benefited me and have enabled me to grow in my leadership. And I think that I want all the women who want to become leaders to understand that we don't look like anybody else in our leadership styles. We all bring something different to the table, and just because we don't lead like our male counterparts does not make us less effective. And so we need to find our superpowers and wear our heels and go forth in our leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. That was wonderful. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Kate Hurley. Kate's a classroom teacher from Chilliwack, British Columbia, and she's in her 16th year of teaching. She sees herself as a Canadian settler teacher, a guest in North America, respecting that it is the place of Canada's Indigenous people that they called home before anyone else did. After discovering her own Indigenous roots, Kate is focused on discovering the cultural and historical experiences that shape our perspectives. Kate lives in Cultus Lake with Morgan, her spouse, and Hope, their daughter, and of course Lily, their golden doodle. She has 5 siblings with whom she is very close. Take it away, Kate.
Hello, thank you so much. So I decided that I'm going to tell a story. In an ideal world, it shouldn't actually matter the gender of a leader, yet we are in a world that invokes ideals on everyone all the time. Organizations themselves need to ensure that there are enough rungs on the ladder to help women further their careers, and women leaders have shown themselves to be problem solvers, mentors, strong motivators, and very persuasive. And I can say this from experience from the women I've worked with. For me, there have been various twists and turns and starts and stops and assorted roadmaps that I have navigated because of my gender. And I actually didn't know I was doing this until one incident with a colleague. When I started my career, I worked in Catholic private schools, and I entered those schools with a passion for teacher leadership that I continue to hold today. So I was ready to learn, to take on challenges and command presence. I was a teacher leader for the staff and the head teacher for the whole school. And believe it or not, and I'm saying that intentionally, just a few years ago, a woman applied for a job at my school, a job that she had once had at the Catholic school. She was about 4 months pregnant at the time, and the job she wanted, the job she completely qualified to do, would have started in September, and she was due in November. She was denied the job, in fact, asked not to apply, and told that she's not getting it because she's just going to leave. They will see her the following September. At that incident, the barriers that hindered her advancement in her career was her family. While women navigate the rise to their careers, be it leadership or otherwise, women are inundated with obstacles that they had not seen or anticipated on their way up, and sometimes hit the ceiling, unable to ascend to some positions. And those hard to see barriers, such as discrimination and prejudice, are the focus of a substantial body of research dedicated to women in leadership. And for that, I am thankful. As a result of that news, and to my utter shock, disgust, and disbelief, I decided to leave that school that September, as did another colleague. Us 3 women now work for our current school district, where my colleague, who was expecting, worked, had her maternity leave, and then just went back to work. My advice to other women who want to be leaders is this: refuse to allow the impact of biases and stereotypes define you or impose implications for your perception of your own leadership abilities. I know that men bond in different ways, but women do too. And this divide should not define our worth, but actually just celebrate those differences. Working alongside strong women in my career has given me inspiration and motivation as a teacher leader. And this exact positioning of us, this women's leadership group, allows a connection. And storytelling is an important method for learning and gaining insight into the paths of leadership. Storytelling itself allows us to make meaning of the world in which we live. And I am so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really, really appreciate your words. Very powerful. It's now my pleasure to introduce Michelle LaBounty. Michelle is a principal of a K-7 IB French Immersion Elementary Public School in West Vancouver. She's passionate about understanding and building shared culture. She's the mother of 2 teenage boys and a standard poodle. She is also a daughter and a sister. She's been married for 20 years this year to her husband, who she met in her 2nd year of teaching. Michelle, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So I applied for my first formal leadership role 15 years ago. At the time, I was a sleep-deprived mother of an almost 1-year-old, working full-time as a grade 6-7 teacher, living in a 2-bedroom basement suite with my husband. I wanted to throw my name into the hat, wanted to throw my name into the ring, and I applied feeling that I had absolutely no business doing so, but fearing that if I didn't, I would be left behind. From what or by whom? I really still don't know. But I think I was even more shocked when I actually got the position. And I think I shocked a lot of people when I then turned it down. And I think this is what disappointed me more than anything. You see, I realized that it wasn't just me that was taking on a new job and a new role, that in doing so, I was carrying a lot of people with me, that the expectations would be on my child, on my husband, on my mother who was helping me with childcare, and also on all the kids that I was working with. And I felt that in taking a new position that I would be disappointing all of them and putting pressures on all of them that wasn't really fair. I was shocked by the reaction of my closest mentor, who told me in no uncertain terms that I was making the biggest mistake of my life by turning down this position. That in doing so, I was closing doors and disappointing all the people who had supported me along the way. Turns out, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I didn't get this position, I got another one. And in doing so, it strengthened my resolve. At the time, I really thought that I was making this decision completely on my own not to take the position. But was I really? Because when I think about it, I made the decision I made because it was the best decision for everyone around me, which made it the best decision for me. I think as women, we often do this. I think we often take a time to think about all the people on our journey and how every decision will affect all the people around us. But I decided at that time, if I was going to move up the ladder, there are a lot of people with me on those rungs. And it's interesting that Kate just talked about that ladder that we see, because really the more I think about it, my career moves have been more like a game of snakes and ladders, I think, than that linear ladder that I think a lot of our male counterparts see. As a woman in leadership, my decisions have always included every single person around me. And I feel like This makes my team stronger. I feel like my team knows that this is what I value. As a woman, I worry about, think about, consider every single decision, personal or otherwise, from multiple perspectives. And I try and do what is best for everyone. And when I know that what I think is best for everyone might not be how other people feel about it, I take the time to explain and reason this with other people. I don't know that everyone does this, but I feel like women do. I've learned that what is best is often what is best at that moment in time. And to move forward in this game of snakes and ladders, on this game, my game board is really crowded, and that's good. That's the way I like it. A crowded game board is a good thing. And so if I can put this piece of advice out to my female counterparts who are thinking of pursuing leadership, know that the game board will be crowded, and that's a good thing. We really thrive in those situations. I'm going to leave it off there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It is now my pleasure to introduce Sandra Lynn Shortall. She's an accomplished education leader. She's currently employed as the Director of Instruction at the West Vancouver School District, which is Canada's highest achieving public school district. Sandra Lynn oversees the inclusive education portfolio and is passionate about creating equitable access to meaningful learning for all students in her school community. She's a frequent national and international speaker on the link between inclusion, social emotional learning, self-regulation, educational leadership, transformation, and optimal learning outcomes. Sandra Lynn lives in West Vancouver with her two amazing little girls, Iris and Estelle, and her husband, Andrew. Sandra Lynn.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm going to start with a little bit of a disclaimer. I almost backed out of this last night. Like all of us, you know, you spend the week running hard and fast from item to item, situation to situation, and then you come home and you start again with your loved ones, and there wasn't much left in the tank by the end of last evening. But fortunately, a good friend of mine encouraged me, thank you, Michelle, to you know, take a deep breath and do what we do, which is you hunker down and you ground yourself in what matters most. And I did that last evening, and I had a really great night with my daughters and my husband, and woke up this morning and hit it again. So with that being said, I'm going to share a little bit of my thinking when it comes to how gender has informed my narrative as an educational leader. As a female educational leader and a mother of two little girls, my journey into the role of both a professional, a practitioner, and now a researcher through my doctoral studies, it's been fueled by early mornings, shaky juggling acts, and more questions than answers. I've repeatedly had to unpack what has brought me to this place, what's driving me, what's fueling my research focus. And, you know, I've realized that it's relationships. And it is that power of the emotional connection, that human connection, and the importance of that, and championing that within our school settings. I'm a female educator, and the ethic of care has been essential to me. It's been a touchstone in my professional journey. And I adhere to the relational view of education, and I see caring as the most essential pedagogical cornerstone in our schools, our classrooms, our communities at large. I'm driven by the idea of change, and alongside of that, the recognition that emotion really is a game changer. My passion for inclusive education lies in the human connection. And it's been interesting because that passion for the human connection has been frequently mislabeled by others as being, oh, Sandra Lynn, you're so emotional and just so passionate, you know. And that hasn't necessarily been a constructive comment that's come my way by others in leadership positions. These disconnects have inspired me as a doctoral researcher, and it has pushed my current reflective practice as a director of instruction as I oversee the special education programming, our English language programming, our inclusive education programming in our community. I acknowledge the full spectrum of the unique human being. This awareness and this respect for the innate diversity that resides in all of us drives my commitment to building inclusive educational practices in our schools and community context alike. I believe that emotion is part of the human condition, and it is not a sign of professional weakness. And this relational sense of caring in education is not about one's emotional state, but it involves this huge web of human relationships within these complex ecosystems that we call schools. So as I think about women moving into this field, I've learned that, you know what, good intentions are not enough, but they're important. Informed leadership is critical. Know your stuff, dig into the research, ask those hard, juicy questions. And at the same time, bring your sparkles and wear the heck out of them. Be positive, find those silver linings, and be brave, model it. It's okay to juggle, and it's okay to be honest about that juggle. But at the same time, please don't forget about yourself. Because I think as women, we often do that. As we care for many, we forget about ourselves within that mix. So do take care of yourself physically and emotionally. This work is hard because it's work of the heart and mind. You can be steely and strong while at the same time being sparkly and smiley. Own it, wear it, and enjoy the heck out of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce Selma Smith. Selma Smith is a positive, culturally sensitive individual with a high degree of integrity and vision to provide a collaborative leadership style to work with a diverse community and staff in order to achieve improved outcomes for children. She's just begun her 21st year as an educator. She's worked as a teacher, counselor, school administrator, and she's in her 6th year as a district principal with the Surrey School District, which is the largest school district in British Columbia. She continues to serve as an adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia, with teaching a specific course on inclusive leadership. And she looks forward to starting a new role with the Western Washington University. She's proud to be working on her doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies at the University of Kansas. She notes that she's a daughter, a wife, a dog mommy to 2 Yorkies, and an auntie to 5. She's a first-generation Canadian of Mexican-German descent, and she considers Mexico to be her home, but lives in Vancouver for a large part of the year. Selma?
Great, thank you very much. I hope my volume's okay. Yeah, okay, great. What a pleasure and privilege I feel to be able to just share with you and others who may listen to this a little bit about my journey, and hopefully it connects with some of you who are listening. For me, I feel very fortunate to have had experiences mostly from, I would say, in a very matriarchal actually family of origin that I come from, and a large part of my extended family. There are a lot of single moms, I would say, in my circle of family members, and just for very different circumstances. So family is really important to me. I'm very close to my large extended family, and I've learned through my years just watching and being part of people's journeys and the resilience that women and all people, men as well, and others can come across. But the inspiration, I would say, for me comes from family members that have had personal struggles with a lot of different things, and the inspiration that I've learned from that. My journey from being a teacher, that's where I started off my educational career, as a teacher. And I have to say, in my early years as a teacher, I was able to, after the first couple of years, I guess, I moved into counseling, and I had a role as a coordinator of counselors and coordinating mental health initiatives in the Vancouver School District. And as a teacher leader, I had opportunities to learn about leadership as a teacher, which was really interesting now that looking back as a school-based leader or district principal, that when I was a teacher, I learned a long way with many different folks who were in different roles in the Vancouver School District in particular. And I just remember being in a learning group for about 2 years with, actually at the time, the superintendent happened to be in my group. We had a custodian who was in our group, a multicultural worker, a teacher, a principal. There were probably about 8 of us or so. And we worked as a group for that 2 years. And that experience of being able to see that regardless of role, anybody can be a leader. And I felt in the different roles that I've been in, I feel for me, my role and what I see is trying to find the best and the strengths that everybody has. And my role, regardless if I've been a teacher, leader, or principal, has been trying to shine light on the strengths that people have, help them build on those strengths. And that's sort of my role as leader. And I heard earlier too, I often use the term lift others up. So that's something that really has resonated for me to keep on doing that. In my learning journey, I've really have been fortunate to have worked closely with the LGBTQ plus community. So working in Vancouver, I was the chair of the Vancouver Diversity Advisory Committee for 5 years. And in that time, really learned a lot of perspectives around gender as being non-binary, and just to be like aware and understanding that everyone identifies in their own way, and to be respectful of that. So I appreciated the experience to look and understand just in terms of people's gender identity and how they identify. So that's been a gift that I feel that I will take with me in the new role that I'm in. I just started with Surrey Schools about 6 months ago, and have really have had a great start to that. So thank you for this time. And I just want to end with, thinking around 3 terms of, being yourself, which means being authentic, is really important in the work that I do moving forward. And the one thing that I strive daily in any interaction that I have with people is to build trust, to build that trust in the relationships that I have with others. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Selma. It's my pleasure now to introduce Lisa Taylor. Lisa is a special education specialist in a blended learning school on the coast of Vancouver Island, where she works as the learning support coordinator for 3 campuses in a K-12 school that has grown to over 1,300 students. She's also working on a doctorate in education, looking at how blended learning, which extends flexibility in time and space for learning, allows for both personalization and inclusiveness in different ways than is possible in a more traditional classroom model. She's celebrating her 30th anniversary this year, married to her husband, David, and they have 3 children: Jordan, who is 25, who's married to Michaela with a 7-month-old baby, Ruben, Christian, who is 22, and Anne-Marie, who is 18. Lisa. Oh, you guys check picture sound.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone. So thanks, Lisa. I grew up in a family of educators. My parents were both academics and taught at a small college here in Canada. They met while completing their master's degrees. And then my dad worked on his PhD in a Texas university while my mom raised 2 young kids and typed his dissertation, while also working a bit outside the home as well. However, in spite of these traditional gender roles, I did know that my mother had professional respect and equity in my dad's eyes, and she had incredible resilience to deal with her era's lack of equality as a college prof. So I had her example before me. I definitely did have experiences earlier in my career that showed a lack of respect based on gender or perhaps age as a young woman educator. But I would say that gender has not been a pivotal barrier in my experience as a leader at the school level. What have been dominant factors in my experience as a female educator are the roles I've held in tandem with my educational career. I made a choice to take a break from teaching high school English when my kids were young. I worked at a nonprofit, tutoring kids with learning disabilities, often from low-income households. And this actually led me to a greater focus on special education, which has been my field now for the past 15 years. I then deliberately chose not to pursue an administrative path, though I now have a partial admin position. So my work as a leader has been mostly as a teacher leader and as a member of nonprofit boards in the area of helping people with developmental disabilities and different abilities. And I've always been the showrunner of our home and many school and community organizations, which did affect some of the career choices I made. So now I approach my role as an educator within a gendered framework or narrative from the perspective of being somewhat outside the box. I have both stepped off the escalator of school district advancement during my career, and I've also stepped sideways into blended learning, which does provide a different perspective on the education system. My context enables a predominantly non-gendered view of student, parents, and educators that isn't always equally possible within a face-to-face context. We have growing numbers of students who identify as non-binary. Our students' parents are men and women who parent outside of traditional roles without concerning themselves with who should be staying home or keeping things going. And in perhaps a larger part than usual, that's true of our staff as well. I'm fortunate that my gendered narrative doesn't include trauma as a result of my experiences as a female educator in a field that traditionally and still currently involves a greater percentage of female teachers and a greater percentage of male administrators, though I know that that has been the case with some of my female colleagues. I also know that I have traded aspects of my career for other roles, but I have not given up aspects of my identity as a female leader in order to connect, succeed, or belong. My intention is to continue to make progress as an educational leader without ever having to make that trade-off, and to encourage other women to do the same. In my junior year of high school, we lived in Germany for a year, and my mom had a long-held goal of beginning a doctoral program herself. And so she registered at the University of Zurich. And after doing that for a little while, she decided that her full professional life and full of other roles as well didn't need that terminal degree. And I had the example from her of the ability, the possibility to change your vision in order to pursue different but equally rich paths. And that has continued, that multicultural, highly gender equitable experiences. Those experiences in my life, living in various countries, have given me the feeling and the experience that has now translated into my professional context of forging a path that does not need to take gender into account in order to be successful and well-rounded.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And last but not least, I want to introduce Lucinda Walters. She's a principal of an elementary school in the Comox Valley, which is on Vancouver Island. She's passionate about adaptive schools through Thinking Collaborative to support effective and meaningful collaboration. Lucinda believes in the power of intentional conversations to support meaningful change in education. She lives with her husband, Michael, and their youngest daughter, Elska, who is currently in 12th grade. Lucinda is adjusting to her oldest daughter, Emiko, living in Victoria and already being in her second year of university. I relate to that one. Lucinda.
Right, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure to dig into the rich, deep dive learning of our cohort through the Kansas University program. And although we are a education in British Columbia, and also for our shared connection through our experiences as women leaders. Now, as I reflect on my own story as a women leader, I think first of all where I orient myself, or how I orient myself as a women leader. And I navigate myself with the world through my feelings and through my intuition, and seeking connection with others, and also thinking of the whole. And I've really brought that to my leadership role as I think about my overarching purpose to be about unifying communities in innovative and meaningful learning. And that connection to others and thinking about relationships and the whole has really been informed by my natural way of being. So I noticed too, as I reflect, that as a teacher leader, there was more comfort, or just a more sense of ease for me to engage. And I really noticed that, that was partially because most of my colleagues were women. And as I continued to go into administration and be in a different realm of leadership, there was a significant shift in the conversational style and approach when we collaborated. And that was difficult for me, as my way of being didn't always jive, or I noticed I held back my feelings and those intuitive knowings. I noticed that there was, and there continues to be, a focus on topics and advocating for ideas, and more of a swift problem solving is the focus, and less of a focus on listening and inquiring into others' ideas, on process, and noticing the whole. Who's talking, who's not, and how can we bring everyone's voice into the room? So I think we need both. We need inquiry, we need advocacy, we need dialogue, and we need decision making. We need process, we need to honor thoughts and our feelings in our work. And really, as a society, and also evident in our classrooms, we are in a place where we're aware of the need for diversity. We want to be strengths-based in our classrooms and make sure that everyone has a voice and is being engaged in their learning. And we see that societal push as well. And I think that in leadership, I really feel that we need to embrace diversity. And I think of a quote of Margaret Wheatley that really sticks with me, is we only can be wise together. And it doesn't speak just to gender, but our gender identity and sexual orientation, race and culture and style. And that really, when we are diverse and we can bring all those voices to the room, we are stronger and we can serve our students, our kids better. So I find it very helpful for me to have this network that we've created here to put my ideas out there, to test them out. And I feel bolstered to continue to bring my voice to other tables, just from having that opportunity to put it out there here first, or with our network. So I would say to women leaders, aspiring women leaders, and as we continue to challenge ourselves to be brave and find your network, so it really can make a difference. Thank you.
I really want to thank you all for taking the time to really think about this important things. And just a couple things I want to say, and then I'm going to open it up a little bit. A couple questions for the group. So first thing I want to say is this is a totally student organized collaboration. And so I think that's really important to know. It wasn't like I, as a professor, said, hey, we should all get together. Like this amazing group of women who are all part of this cohort looked around the cohort, thought about their own roles, and connected with each other on their own, saw some patterns and some similarities, and said, how do we support each other as leaders, and how do we support other women who potentially want to follow in our footsteps or who are doing this work now? So they reached out to me, and nothing is more makes you feel better than as a professor than having a group of students extracurricularly on top of everything else that they are balancing in their lives. And believe me, as you know, I don't actually like the word balance. These folks are working full time, managing families, managing COVID, working in schools that are the touch point for many people in their communities. They are leaders in whatever role they're in, and they're students. And on top of that, they've decided to get together and do this. And I just have to say that how empowering that is as a person and as a woman to see you all do this. You notice some themes if you listen to this, right? So there's some themes about intuition, about relational thinking, about big sparkly, about being emotional, about the importance of our families, the importance of the folks that we serve, the students that we work with and their families, the importance of diversity and not thinking about gender as in a binary or people only as being one certain background, but valuing the diversity that people bring to the table. So all of those themes have come through in this discussion. So now I want to ask this question, and answer in whatever order you'd like. Of course, it's hard on the Zoom, but when you think about what advice you would give to a young person who wants to be a leader in this space, wants to follow in your sparkly footsteps, what advice might you give to them? What on how to navigate this? Because it's not easy to manage. And again, I purposely don't use the word balanced because I don't think at any moment in time anyone feels particularly balanced. We juggle, we manage, we integrate, balance. But what advice would you give to folks? Paula?
I'd tell them right off the bat, find a network. And in that network, whether it's other women or even, anybody who can support your development and your thinking, somebody to reach out to, because we all need that. And I think that's something that when you're, like Lucinda mentioned, when you're a little bit apprehensive about perhaps sharing your ideas, you need a testing ground. And sometimes that network that you have can be the best testing ground for you, where you feel uninhibited before you can actually put your thoughts and your feelings out on the table. So my advice would be to find a network.
Great.
Or create a network if you can't find one.
Right? Don't wait for someone else to create it for you. All right. Thank you, Paula. Someone else?
I can go. It's Selma. For me, I would say you don't have to have it all figured out. So, just embrace the journey and follow your passions. That's it.
Thank you, Selma. Michelle, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, whatever decision you make, know that it's the right decision at that time. And you just need to go forth, and you can make changes and make adjustments as you go forth in the future, but don't ever look back with regrets, because it's just not worth it. That decision was an important decision when you made it, and it's made you who you are, and you just need to embrace that.
Thank you, Michelle. Lisa, did you have one? Yep.
Yeah. My advice, follow your own path. I think it's so easy to compare ourselves to each other. We do it all the time, or to the mythical ideal woman or our educator idols. And I think just looking around the women in this group, all of us pursuing doctorates. All of us have a passion for education, and we all have really unique contexts and backgrounds and things that we bring to the table. And we're all providing transformative educative experiences for our students. We benefit greatly from each other's stories, our shared experiences, and the support we give each other, but we're all going to have a unique and meaningful impact on the field of education, and our journey doesn't have to look a certain way.
Thank you, Lisa. Kate, and then
Yeah.
I'll go to Lucinda.
I would just like to say that everyone makes mistakes, and you're going to, but use your mistakes as opportunities for learning and changing, because without them, you don't really know anyways. So embrace your mistakes.
There you go. Lucinda?
Yeah, I would add, find what you're passionate about, because as you're managing so much in your lives, having that passion area can really fuel you forward. And that's your way of bringing your unique voice to the world, and we need to hear from you.
Thank you. Sandra Lynn?
I'm going to piggyback on what Kate said, because I think that's a critically important point, to understand that making mistakes is part of the lived experience, and it's okay. It's okay. And I think for many of us, from a female perspective, we hold the emotionality related to mistakes, and we do hold, you know, the would have, should have, could have, didn't, and you know, you kind of ruminates and can become something that can really wrap around you. So, you know, try to find some peace within that, because as Kate noted, mistakes are a part of growth and development and success and failure. And, you know, it's all within that one mixed bag, which is called life. And that's okay. And, you know, you'll have those nights where you will pop up 3 o'clock in the morning and you'll run through the list of all the things you should have, could have, would have, didn't. And, you know, each new day is a new gift, and you just take a deep breath and you keep going. And, you know, as we've joked about, yeah, put on those heels and break out the sparkles, especially in those dark days where you're just like, oh man, would have, should have, could have, but didn't. And just carry on. Just carry on. You've got it.
Thank you, Sandra Lynn. I don't know if one of the things that I was thinking, and I know this resonates with you, when your lives are so full and you're sort of doing everything for everybody else, which can be really empowering, right? Because it's part of your passion, going to what Lucinda said, you know, for the dog and the cat and the kid and the spouse or partner and the family and the parent and the kids in your school and parents and all of those things. I think one of the things we get really can get really burnt out if we don't take care of ourselves. And I think a lot of times we put ourselves last, and we do that at our own peril, because it's if we don't take care of ourselves, you know, fill up the batteries and take care of ourselves, we run out of juice and we're not able to do all of those other things that we need to do. So figure out what you need to do to find joy in your life, to take care of yourself, to be selfish, is really an important lesson to learn, and I think really, really essential for all folks at various stages. Anyone else want to have our concluding comment? Shannon, we didn't make you say something, share an idea.
Okay, I'll just share one of the many things, like how many pieces of advice can you give?
It's 3 o'clock.
Well, there you go. One of the pieces that I probably learned, you know, by making a few mistakes is bring yourself to the table. You're the one who comes to work, and there's not a different version of you that's at home, and then you bring a separate version to work or to wherever you're leading. Everything, you know, there's that old quote by Telemachus who says, I'm a part of all that I have met. And you're a spouse or a partner or a parent and a sister and a daughter and a, you know, lover and the whole 9 yards. That's who you are. Bring that to work and your leadership, because the world needs that. The world needs the voice. The world needs you with your high heels and your sparkles. And if you want big shoulder pads, put those big shoulder pads on. And if you want clean lines, wear the clean lines, but just be who you are, because that's what the world needs.
Thank you all for taking the time to share your wisdom, and look forward to future collaborations with all of you. Yay!
Thank you.